Today we're going to talk about history of firefighting while I sketch this little guy. And let's just get to it. Let's just turn the page and get started. Ooh-wee. See, sometimes I think it would be better to turn the book this way because I've got the height and I've got that little shadow right there. Maybe this time we will, but you know what? Let's just keep it consistent. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is 5:30 in the morning on is it Thursday? Thursday morning. 5:30 in the morning, Thursday morning is when we pull a toy out of the toy box, a random object out of the random object randomographer, and we draw it. We don't just do that on Thursday mornings, we do that every morning. Every morning at 5:30 in the morning, I run down the stairs, mostly because I'm late, and I pick a random toy well, actually I picked a random toy yesterday, but I have a random toy that I draw. And we talk about it. And today's random toy is a firefighter. And yes, this firefighter has a lot of detail. My dad was a firefighter. My daughter's boyfriend seems like a weird term. She's 30, so boyfriend seems like a weird term. Lover is a firefighter. It's a firefighter. Somebody said when you're in your 30s, you don't have boyfriends or girlfriends, you have lovers. I don't know how she feels about that. I think it's hilarious. Significant other. No, it's not a significant other. He's not. Is he significant? I don't know. He's the current favorite. I like him. He's a good guy. He's a firefighter. he's probably watching. when he's on a call, he's at the firehouse 24 hours a day, and he sometimes watches. Which is why I think it's funny to make all those comments. He does. He has a lot of patience because he's putting up with my daughter, and she is my daughter. She is opinionated and stubborn and often full of rage, and I just love her so much. And I can hear her now. I'm not opinionated. How dare you say I'm opinionated? I can't believe. She's 4'8". She sounds like a chihuahua. Blah, 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 blah. But yeah, he's a firefighter. And so, my dad was a firefighter. So it's all fun to talk about for me. The block-in was basically just a body shape. A rectangle with a couple of rectangles sticking off of it, a rectangle on the top, and a wiper in half. So I start putting anchor details in pretty quick. And usually that comes back to bite me. Usually when you start putting anchor details in that quick, what you end up with is you got your details. You're married to where your details are, but they're far enough out of whack that you can't reconcile it to the position of the figure. But I think this time we're going to be okay. I think my little firefighter here has enough detail that I think we're going to be okay with with putting the anchor details in effect sooner. The first official firefighters of record, for centuries when as towns were formed, they would have, citizens would just start helping people put out fires. They would carry bucket brigades. They would carry buckets around to the fires to help put out the fires. But the first known instance of somebody actually just their job was to put out fires were the Roman vigiles. However you say a G in an ancient Rome, vigiles, vigiles. The vigilantes, they're fire vigilantes is what they are. They're fire vigilants. And they were mostly made up of freedmen, men that used to be slaves that had been freed, that needed something to do with their lives because it was too difficult to get back to their homeland, And they would put them in structures around town, encampments around the town. And this was under Augustus Caesar, the 6th century AD. Anyway, they would give them room and board, and it would be their job to patrol the town and watch for fires, and then when they would run on foot, carrying buckets of water and wet blankets and hatchets and stuff to put out fires. That idea didn't take off, believe it or not. That was a Roman thing. And when Rome fell, that idea fell with it. And so while it happened all over the empire, while Augustus was Caesar, when Caesar was no more, so were the Roman vigiles. That idea was the first documented time it happened, and then it didn't happen again for a couple hundred years. Which is crazy. Crazy to me. I did not spritz. Thanks for reminding me. My mother asked me if I spritzed my watercolors. Are my cameras changing? I haven't looked up for my drawing since I started putting pencil to paper. I have no idea if my cameras are changing. I think they have to be. But anyway. Hi, Ivy. Good morning. Good morning on a Thursday morning. Ivy's joining us on a Thursday morning. Where was I? Yeah, so they used to have to run all the equipment out on foot. My mom's asking Ivy about kittens. Yeah, Ivy, did you get your kittens fed? She posted a live video. She had her kittens on live stream the other day. It was so adorable. But they used to have to run all the equipment out on foot, and then, a couple of hundred years later, they had several great fires in London. But in 1666, they had the Great Fire in London. And that kind of changed all the attitudes about fire brigades. They started having more serious stuff about fire brigades. So it used to be you went from the bucket brigade, where it was just every citizen's responsibility to keep a fire bucket in their house, and to have somebody on watch. You went from that to people dedicated to doing it pretty quickly especially after the 1666 fire, London fire. Burned down a whole big bunch of London. Same thing happened in Chicago in 1871. We had Mrs. O'Leary's cow knock over a lantern in a barn and burn down most of Chicago. And those kinds of things changed the nature of the fire brigade, from just a bunch of guys that were carrying fire buckets to people dedicated to maintaining wagons with pumps on them, and learning skills on how to fight fires, and building codes on how to prevent fires, building codes. That is enough pencil detail. Let's move on to the fountain pen. Ivy says they're all capable of eating solid food. Outstanding. Outstanding. You're a good mommy. So those events led to some building code changes. Like in London, and people from London get shocked when they come to the Americas and they find that we are still building with wood, because their cities almost burned completely to the ground. And so they have very strict building codes that they have to be rock and brick. The structure has to be rock and brick. They can't have a wooden structure for a house. And so they're sometimes shocked when they come to the Americas and find out that we're still building with wood. But wood is so plentiful in the Americas that it is still the primary building material. But we have, just like them, just like in London, we have fire codes now that we have to deal with also. You have to have materials rated for fireproofness in your building. You have to have fire gaps in your spacing of your buildings. Not only do you have to have things to help prevent your building from burning down, but you have to have things in place that will prevent, if your building is burning down, that will prevent your building from burning all the adjacent buildings down. So the big takeaway from the two big fires is the new building codes and types of equipment, plus the introduction of an official fire brigade in almost every town. And that they have the New York Fire Academy started in the 19th century. The London Fire Service College started in the 19th century, where at the time men would go and learn and train in the techniques on not only how to put out fires, but how to prevent fires. And now there's quite a few firefighter colleges around the countries. Ivy said her kittens jumped off the bed and discovered just how cold and hard the world can be when they hit the floor. Ivy wants to know if we could make smoke detectors that don't go off when you just want to cook a steak. I tell you what, in my house, there are so many times that I have to put a wet towel over my smoke detector. And they're all wired together. If the one downstairs goes off, it sets off all the rest of them. And so the whole house is chiming. Because we're cooking steak indoors. And or whatever we're cooking and the butter got hot. I'm with you. Yeah, it ought to be, the smoke detectors ought to be smart enough to know. You ought to be able to just say, I'm just cooking. The one in the kitchen especially should chirp loudly a couple of times, then you turn around and say, I'm just cooking, and then it should reset. I agree. It's 2025. You need to quit living in the 1800s, in the late 1900s, using this late 1900s technology. It's 2025, and we're still all dedicated to this late 1900s technology. Of course, I guess technically I'm late 1900s technology. Warm light, cool shadows. I have a warm light, so I'm going to use a blue mixture to make shadows. Warm light, cool shadows. Do do do. Do 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 do. I love this part. This is the part to me that makes the whole thing come together. I don't know if I've ever told you that before. I want to make sure that you understand. This is the part for me that gives the whole thing depth. Where were we? Firefighter training. And the firefighters, there's a lot of firefighters. Like, my dad didn't go to the college for firefighting. My dad went to some training, but he didn't go to the college for firefighting. So there's a lot of, because it was a small town. A lot of small towns have volunteer firefighters, and those guys are amazing, because those are just citizens that decided that they want to protect their fellow citizens, and so they gear up. They're answering the call when the alarm goes off. They're running out there and they're answering the call, and that's amazing. Those guys are great, but they didn't go to the college. They didn't go to the academy to learn how to and get tested. They didn't have the physical fitness requirements of having to climb a ladder carrying a 50-pound hose, or carrying 50 pounds of equipment, or have competitions to see how far and fast you can drag the hose where it needs to go, or climb a ladder, or get to scale the top of a building. These guys go through some pretty rigorous training and some pretty demanding physical fitness things on top of mental acuity, because you have to be able to figure out, you know, what's going to explode? Where's the fire going to come from? So these guys go through some pretty rigorous training with some stray hair in my brush. My dad didn't go through that. I'm not all firefighters go through that, but he did have to maintain a certain amount of physical fitness, and he did have to maintain the equipment. I don't know if he ever participated in the competitions. That would have been cool. Can't talk farting. He said he didn't do any of the competitions. He's talking to my mom in the background, and she's relaying it over the phone to me. All right. That's enough of that. Wait a minute. You know what? I didn't get the underside of his belt right there. All right, let me dry that real quick, and then we'll move on to some color. Right. You did go to school. You did have to spend 2 years learning how to be an EMT. But you did that while you were on the job, didn't you? You started off as for the EMT. You started off as an ambulance driver, Dad. It's 40 degrees in Indiana. Lovely. It's still about 75. It's 5:30 in the morning, and it's still about 75 degrees here. There we go. Ivy's talking about it being 40 degrees in Indiana, and it's 75 here, 70, 73, 75 here. It's 5:30, almost 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's still 73 degrees. Do. There are roughly 350,000 home fires in the U.S. every year that firefighters respond to. Most of them are caused by cooking, which is probably why we can't just tell the fire alarm that we're cooking. Most of them are caused by cooking or heating equipment errors or faulty wiring. 350,000 fires in the U.S., home fires in the U.S. annually. I wonder how many of them were set just to get those calendar firefighters to come out. I know there were people that just like to watch my dad fight fires, so he has the same problem I have. It's hard sometimes just being a trophy husband and being eye candy like this, and then have to go deal with the public. So, I'm sure there are people out there that were setting fires just to see have my dad come put the fire out. My mom is giggling. Yeah, I can't wait. We don't really get 40-degree weather much here in Houston, Ivy. We get we have two seasons here in Houston. We have hot and not as hot. And we are currently in the hot at the end of the hot season. And we are getting a taste of the not as hot season. But it is not quite the not as hot season. But I am absolutely looking forward to the not as hot season. Absolutely looking forward to the not as hot season. The highest amount of accidental fires is attributed to Detroit. They have a decaying infrastructure, and they are struggling with their decaying infrastructure. They have a lot of vacant homes, and they are struggling with all of that. And so the highest number of accidental fires is attributed to Detroit. Let me try this real quick. Almost done. We're running a little behind, but almost done. Chicago and LA get the awards for the most arson. They tend to have quite a few. They tend to have quite a few events where people like to set things on fire. So Chicago and LA get the, or not, yeah, that's right. Chicago and LA get the awards for the most arson. Detroit has the most is attributed to the most accidental fires. But I think we can all safely say that firefighters have a pretty important and dangerous job. There's a comedy series that my wife watches. I can't think of the name of it. I was going to tell you guys about it, and I meant to write it down. I can't think of the name of it. But it's based in Oregon, where it rains all the time, and they're a fire brigade there, and they don't ever have fires to deal with because it's always raining, and the vast majority of the time they're dealing with things like kids being stuck in storm drains because they're hiding from their parents because they don't want to eat broccoli. I mean, it's a goofy show, but it's probably how the vast majority of firefighters spend their their time when they're not dealing with actual fires. So I don't think all firefighters are all the time on fire. But the point is that they're always ready to be. So, I'm thinking about ordering a stamp or making one where I can just stamp that rectangle out so that the lines are straight. Part of me really likes the scrawly hand-drawn lines. Part of me wishes it was more square. I don't know. I don't know which I'd rather have. What is today? Today is the 9th. October. Mom says, where we used to live, brush fires were very prominent. My dad would ride on the front of the pickup spraying the fire, and there were times that the fire decided to chase him. Not only would he stand on the front of the truck spraying the fire, but they would have to spray him to keep the fire from climbing up him while he was doing it. She doesn't like to talk about that part. Okay. So here is oh yeah, kiss my dog goodbye where it means he's in trouble. There is my version compared to the photograph. And now let's see. Let me turn this microphone off. So the battery doesn't run down when I'm not looking. We'll stop this recording. Eject this camera. Da-na-na-na-na. I'm gonna stop this recording. Da-na-na-na-na. And then eject this camera. Da-na-na-na-na. I'm gonna take this picture. Da-na-na-na-na. And show it to ya. Oh, my glasses are blurry. I don't know if I told you guys, I broke my other glasses, so I had to pull out an old pair of glasses. And my old pair of glasses, the prescription is not quite right. And so things that are supposed to be keen are not as keen, and things that are supposed to be. All right, so there is my version from my perspective. Okay. So that's what I did today. Tomorrow, we have a canister pulled over here. Whatever could it be? Whatever could it be? I'm so excited. The suspense gets me every time while we try to figure out what it might be. We pull up the tape, we open it up, and it is... What is this? It is a semi-trailer truck. It's a tractor truck. Ooh. We can talk about tractor pulls. We can talk about bad driving. We can talk about that. We can talk about that movie in the 80s where that truck chased down people. There's all kinds of stuff we could talk about tomorrow. So this is a semi-truck. It is Safari. Look at all. I don't know if you can see all the detail on there. This is a tractor truck. This is intended to be drawn tomorrow morning, the 10th, Friday the 10th. So if you're watching this Friday the 10th and it's before 5:30 in the morning, then you're watching the trailer, and this is what we're about to draw. So stick around, we'll get right on it. But for the rest of us, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I do look forward to this every day, especially when I get to learn about Ivy's kittens. But If you're not following Ivy Sunny Flowers, you need to, because then you can have kitten updates while you watch her do colored pencils. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. I do appreciate you. I look forward to this every day when I get to art with my besties. And it holds me accountable to my art practice, and it gives me some art practice when it's sometimes the only art I get to do in a day. So thank you so much. Be sure and tune in tomorrow, same Artistic Biker time, same Artistic Biker channel. And then we dance. We dance until somebody says they see me dancing, because when they see me dancing, it means that the lag has caught up with the stream. It gives you a chance to click the clicky thingies, if they're this way if you're horizontal, and they're this way if you're vertical, and it makes sure that I am not cut off mid-sentence, because being cut off mid-sentence is rude. Nobody really likes that. But, it's just